Think it's time we rise up, people. It's time's up, people. You can talk all you want, but it won't change a thing. I wanna know what you do.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Up and Up. Today, I have a very special guest. Her name is Heather Warburton. Welcome to the show, Heather.
Thanks for having me, Jodi. I'm happy to be here today.
Awesome. Heather, you're actually running as Green Party candidate, which I'm very excited to dig into. So we can kind of figure out what that entails to you for you as a candidate, right? But first, let's just start with a little bit about you. What's your background and kind of what brought you into the position where you are running for lieutenant governor?
Well, it's been a long journey to get here. I guess I've kind of always been one of those activated sort of people that I was having protests when I think it was junior high, maybe it was early high school. Like our principal was being fired and we liked our principal. So we all were like protesting outside of a school board meeting and writing letters to the editor at like 12 years old. And we actually managed to keep our principal. So it was awesome.
That's funny. 80s kids will get this, right? Hold on. We don't want a good principal. We want Mr. Clark.
So as I got older, I graduated, I got a degree in visual arts. I'm a working artist, and I started trying to get involved with the local Democratic Party. They wanted nothing to do with the kind of stuff I was talking about because I'm talking about changing things. And that wasn't really what they were into, especially at the time that I tried to get involved. So kind of backed away from all that. Then 2016 happened, and I was very interested in the Bernie campaign. I had volunteered with the Bernie campaign, and we all know how that played out. So that was, hey, I'm done. I'm leaving the Democratic Party, got involved with the Green Party. And it was kind of one of the most empowering things I could have done. Like, I really realized the power of grassroots organizing and activism, and started meeting really awesome people and being engaged in all these various activisms around the state. So that really got me interested, and I volunteered in a number of campaigns, and I campaign managed for a number of other people's campaigns. And finally, the governor candidate for this year asked me if I would be her lieutenant governor candidate. So I couldn't say no because she's someone I really respect. Madeline Hoffman is her name. She has been a peace activist. She ran a peace activism nonprofit for, I think, 20 years. And before that, she ran an environmental justice organization nonprofit for, I might be getting it wrong, but I think it was 15 years before that. So she has a long history of amazing activism. So I couldn't say no to her.
That's amazing. And what I really love about that, I mean, I know I gave you this spiel about the Up and Up, and where the whole mission of the show is to lift up activists and things like that. And it's I can't imagine a better background for people who are going to be going in politics, right? People I think sometimes differentiate in their mind that, okay, there's activism and then there's electoral. You know what I mean? Like these are like different different categories. But I think that really the two go hand in hand. And what better person to be in a position to be working on policies and making decisions about policies than someone who's done all that research and then has so believes so fervently in it that they go out there and advocate for them. I think those are exactly the right people to be in that. It's a wonderful that's a wonderful qualification for being a public servant. But so tell me a little bit about I think we have an idea of what the Green Party's policies are. And in my audience, I'm pretty sure you have a lot of people who are disaffected, Democratic, formerly Democratic voters who, probably a little farther left, right? But talk a little bit, if you could, about what, I guess broad brush, what are the major Green Party policies that you're advocating for in this race?
So I think a lot of people are under a misunderstanding of exactly what the Green Party is. when I started organizing, there was no South Jersey Green Party really to speak of at the time when I got involved and started organizing. And we started having meetings, and people thought we might have been a gardening club. People had no idea.
That kind of makes sense, right? Green Party.
What the Green Party was or what we were about. And people just think of environmental activism, which is part of it. Don't get me wrong. That's obviously a big part of it because we're on the brink of a climate disaster. But there's so much social justice that's a part of it too, that maybe people don't know about. There's reforming the voting system itself, making a more fair and just voting system with things like ranked choice voting and proportional representation, and ending big money in politics. You know, we are not someone who takes corporate, our campaign takes no corporate money whatsoever. It's all just people powered. And you see when campaigns take big pharma money or big war profiteer money or whomever they're taking money from, that's who they're legislating for. So, you know, that's part of the whole reforming the whole electoral system. But on top of that, there's also grassroots, you know, from the bottom up, not the top down, is one of the big tenets of the Green Party. So it really kind of runs the gamut across things. And obviously peace, right? Nobody likes war. We spend so much of our budget on our military budget to go around bombing Black and brown people. And we need to stop that. So peace is another one of the major things that we run on as a Green Party.
I just want to kind of comment on the Electoral Focus, right? You got me with money in politics. I spent 5 years really trying to get a constitutional amendment to address the issue of money in politics and its corrupting influence. Still trying, but in a different way. So what I think is interesting, especially especially in like 2016, which is the one that I'm most aware of, right? Jill Stein and these barriers to a third party. So we have this duopoly of the two major parties, right? And we can see very clearly, I think this just really really illustrated the issue that we have with anything outside of the duopoly trying to get into, trying to get any type of legitimacy, I guess, trying to establish, establishment legit, I guess, right? But it's very interesting to see how that played out. And so what kind of has happened since then? I know that you're familiar with the issues that have come up recently. I feel like there have been cases where the party is trying to get on the ballot in states and having issues with that. So are you familiar? Did that happen in New Jersey?
Oh, absolutely. We've had it happen to us here in New Jersey. Had a local candidate running for state assembly. She collected her signatures. She needed, I believe it was 100 signatures to get on the ballot. So we were out there, we collected, I want to say it was somewhere in the neighborhood of like 130, 140 signatures. The Democrats filed a lawsuit to get her kicked off the ballot, saying that her signatures were invalid. So the judge gave her 1 day, show up tomorrow at the courthouse to defend your signatures, thinking, and this is a woman from a marginalized community. She's a single mother. There's no way she's going to be able to show up. She doesn't have a lawyer. But surprise, we have lawyers in the Green Party. So we had not one, but 2 lawyers to the court that day. And they're going through signature by signature. And the Dems are challenging it. And the judge is agreeing with us. And this goes on. I think it was a total of 8 hours, because they went name by name, verifying. By lunchtime, the Democrats were so upset they hadn't brought a lawyer. They called one in at lunchtime to come in and still try to get us kicked off the ballot. And ultimately we succeeded, and she's on the ballot, her signatures, but they tried to disenfranchise all these people who had signed her ballot. And these are people from a marginalized community that, because we don't want to green on the ballot, we're going to try to kick her off on a frivolous charge.
Yeah. Just to me, it just seems so blatant, I don't see personally any issues with having more people on the ballot, more people on the stage. I don't think it would be any type of problem to have someone on the ballot and then do your campaigning, and whoever people, decide to vote for, they vote for it, right? Is there some type of, I just wonder, like, what kind of reason is given for using these tactics, right? For like the Democratic Party to be, going after these policies where, restricting people from the ballot. Is there is there like a, does the Democratic Party have is there some type of defense or, explanation for why they're doing this? That I feel like you'd have to have an argument, right?
Well, I can tell you, I don't understand it either because it's based on lies. But I can tell you what they say is that you're stealing votes from someone, that somehow votes are something that belongs to them. And if somebody isn't voting for them, then those votes are being stolen. Now, that's not how it happens. If you like a candidate, you vote for that candidate, right? This seems pretty simple, but also the problem, and this is what I see when we have third-party candidates getting their voices out, they're talking about things that the Democrats don't want to talk about. The Republicans, now, the Republicans are open. We don't care about any of this stuff, but the Democrats like to pretend that they care about things like immigration, for example. But here in New Jersey, there's Democratic politicians who are involved in owning or making money off of ICE detention facilities. They don't want to be called out on that, right? Even when they're doing really bad things, they don't want to be called out on it. We had a candidate, he's my local representative in South Jersey. He started off running as a Democrat. He had a horrible voting record. He had voted against same-sex marriage, not once, but twice. He had an A+ rating from the NRA. And this guy's running as a Democrat. And so I campaign managed for an independent running against him, being like, here's this guy's voting record. I'm not saying anything except here's his voting record. Right. Is that who you want to represent you? And you would have thought I pooped in somebody's punch bowl. They were so angry that I was holding him accountable for his voting record.
Yeah. The other thing is that you were talking about when you were going into your explanation about the Green Party is one of the things they're fighting. One of the things that you said is ranked choice voting, right? And that completely ameliorates, you know what I'm talking about. It kind of negates the argument about stealing voters from other parties, right? So because you can choose your second choice. And of course, that allows people to vote their conscience, and not be taking away a vote from somebody else or, these kind of other arguments that they're given. So the solution is already there that negates the argument, and yet they're fighting both of them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's an occasional, in New Jersey, at least there's an occasional Democrat that will say that they support ranked choice voting. There was even a ranked choice voting bill that someone did propose, got no traction whatsoever. And New Jersey is entirely controlled by Democrats. So if it's something they wanted, it would be in place. Nothing. One person proposed it and then crickets from everyone else. So, it's not something they support because they know that might take some power from them. And that's what they really want, right? They want to keep that power and ability to give their buddies contracts and whatever other horrible things they're doing. There's another huge barrier that's been put in place against our campaign. To qualify for the state debates with, there's 5 candidates for governor in New Jersey. There's only 5 of us. It's not like there's a field of 50 of us. There's just 5 of us. Yeah. But to qualify for the debates, you have to have raised $500,000. That's the only bar. You have to have $500,000 in your war chest to be in the debates. We don't raise that kind of money. That's some of the barriers. But some of the great things is this is probably the biggest Green Party campaign I think I've ever seen, the amount of volunteers and staff that we have. And I just want to highlight that it's young people. Our staff is so much younger than I am. I am the oldest person, I think, on the staff. One of our campaign managers is in college. Some of our regional directors are still in high school. And these are people we've, have gotten, paid actual positions. They're a regional director because they see how desperate things are, and they're going to have to live with this catastrophic climate damage for so long, much longer than we are if, we don't have near-term extinction. Then these people have to deal with all these really bad decisions that are being made. So I love seeing that excitement, and they're opening us up to new technologies. They've got us on TikTok. So it's really cool working with so many cool young people. And aside from that, just when we talk to people, what we're talking about makes sense. We're not talking about something really radical here. We're talking about things that most people agree with. And when they hear that, they're like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So it's just that, are we going to break through the duopoly? That entrenched thing? Probably not. We need a lot of votes to do that, because we're not paying, organizers, where, it's just all volunteers showing up and doing stuff for us.
Wow. It's just amazing. I wonder if, so when people are canvassing, going door to door, I wonder if that's kind of like a common frame that people already have in their mind, right? So I wonder, like, when you're having a conversation at the door, when people are having a conversation at the door and things like that, is this something that, that people will bring up on a regular basis? Are you able to just kind of push that aside immediately?
Well, it depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to an entrenched political person, nothing you say is going to break through. If you're talking to someone who, and that's usually who we end up talking to, is the people who get that the system is never for them. And they're just more likely to check out and be like, why should I bother voting?
Right.
The system isn't for you. And it's never going to be for you unless you vote for people that are talking about the things that are important to you. Right. And that's our big difference, is that people are our power. Our power doesn't come from wealth. Our power doesn't come from connections. Our power comes from people. That's who, if we get elected, that's who's going to be responsible for helping make sure that we get these things passed. Like, we have a history of activism. We've been in the streets with bullhorns and marching and showing up and, bird dogging politicians. And we'll keep doing it with the people in the streets. So that's that connection that we can make with people. Even if we don't win, those connections can last. And that's really important, is the grassroots organizing that can come out of a campaign. Yeah. So there's no losing, really, even if we aren't governor and lieutenant governor in, a couple of months now. We've still talked to hundreds and thousands of people and made connections and started. Sometimes it's just good to hear someone agrees with you that's running for office. It can be really lonely if you're out there fighting for what's right and you just keep getting doors shut in your face, and where they're like, hey, guess what? You're right. I think that's why a lot of people liked Bernie too, right? That Absolutely. He's like, yeah, you guys are right. Here's what is correct in a society. Here's what's good in a society. Here's why you should have a society. Yeah. And I think that resonates with people and engages in, helps make them not feel so lonely.
Yeah, this is a common frame for me. You know what I mean? I have been active in different ways before. Essentially, when Bernie ran, right? That was what kicked my butt into action, right? And I think at the end of the day, I think probably similar to what you're saying, but put in a different way, is I feel like Bernie just realized, kind of made us realize that we're not the only one. Right. So, like, the first thing I went to, the first time I went to go see Bernie speak, right? This is like, before anybody, was talking about him or anything like that. My brother calls me up and he says, hey, you want to go see Bernie at Milton High School? And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. So, like, it was the two of us and then two of our friends, right? And we went, and I'm sitting here thinking that, it's going to be like this small crowd. I'm thinking like nobody else knows who Bernie is and nobody else is a Bernie supporter. And of course we get there and we have to park like a mile away, first of all, because there's just cars stacked up and cars stacked up. We get there and there's, it's probably a weird analogy, but it's the one that I think of for some reason is, it's like intestines, I don't know, whatever. I need to come up with a better analogy, but whatever. Just this line of people, not even like a straight line coming out. It was just amazing. There were so many people and you're just kind of looking around and you're like, wow, all of these people are Bernie supporters. And what I really loved about it was just kind of like the attitude of everybody there. There were, other people, coming around and coming through with Ted Cruz signs and stuff. And everybody's just like, yeah, do your thing, man. They're trying to kind of instigate and, be the adversarial. People are just like, no, go ahead. You're here to, you support that candidate. Okay, cool. We're here to support this candidate. All right, cool. Let them cross the line. It was, I kind of knew that I was amongst my people. You know what I mean? I was like, all right, do what you want. We're here for good things. You know what I mean? But also, it's really, it's really interesting to me when you can connect to people on a personal level and just like how these policies affect people's lives, right? And that's what Bernie was about to me, was kind of bringing people to understand that it's not just you. And when you know that it's not just you, you can start to see the broader picture of how the policies are affecting all of us, right? That it's not a personal deficiency, that, you know, you can't pay rent. It's the fact that like our system is so messed up that people don't make enough money at their job to be able to pay rent. You know what I mean? It's systemic. And that's what understanding, what's understanding that other people are going through it and realizing that you're not the only one. That's what that does, right? It translates it into systemic policy choices that affect your everyday life, right? And it's kind of interesting. I had looked into, I volunteer with a few different organizations, and one of them, a national organization, People's Action, did this whole thing that was about, deep canvassing. And it was really cool because it really did show that when you could talk to people, when you sat there and you talked to people, you let people share what was going on in their life, you share a little bit about what's going on in your life, and you kind of non-judgmentally, not confrontationally, but have conversation where people are able to, you're able to kind of understand each other's perspectives. And then based on somebody's perspective, you can kind of throw in, a little something here and a little something there that kind of clarifies, hey, this is the policy that's going to fix that, or, whatever. It's much more in depth than how I'm explaining it. But anyway, let me shut up and let you do the talking, because that's what we're here for. But yes, canvassing is a pretty amazing thing. And then to be able to, even just move the needle just a little bit on somebody's views and, just kind of clarify. It's beautiful, right? And that's what's, the Overton window, help shift the Overton window there, right?
Since we're people, right? We're real people. We're not professional politicians. We're not millionaires. We live in real communities with real people. So we're talking about issues that are being talked about in those communities that aren't being talked about by someone who lives, in a mansion somewhere. So, for example, New Jersey flooding, especially in South Jersey where I live, is a massive issue. Even before the recent tornadoes and devastating weather, farms are getting flooded out, and these are people whose their livelihood is farming, and their farms have standing water in them. Even just if you live in like the Back Bay area in Atlantic City or Pleasantville, in that area, just a regular sunny day, you might have flooding, not tied to a storm. Just like if it's a full moon, you may have flooding, and people are being driven out of their homes and being forced to relocate. And there's not really resources for them. These are climate refugees. There's people that were victims of Hurricane Sandy who still haven't recovered. And these are people in our communities and people that we meet and talk to every day. So there's, it's important to get these issues talked about on a much larger scale. People think, oh, we got some FEMA money, everything must be fine now. And if you're not in the communities, you don't know. Things are not fine. They're not going to be fine for a long time.
Yeah. And just to kind of highlight the importance of, shows like this, right? Because the mainstream media doesn't follow this. They don't follow it. They'll report on, they allocated this money to FEMA and, whatever to be used for this cleanup or whatever. But then they don't follow it down. So then the implementation, how is it implemented? Who did it go to? Where did this money actually go to? Who was able to access it? I think, at the end of the day, it's, unfortunately, I think we all know that it comes down to, people who don't have the means, right? So like, even just for example, right? Let me see. I had a pipe burst in my house, and it was, oh my God, it was completely a nightmare. It took out my entire first floor. And it's just amazing to me that here's a single mom with 2 kids, and the insurance company, I had to fight them tooth and nail. They pulled out all of the tricks in the book. I ended up having to call the, of course I kept everything on record because that's who I've become now. I'm like a business person in all my dealings because they will take advantage however they can. And it took me, I had to follow them down. I had to call the insurance, send all of these. I have the receipts. This is what happened. I have these conversations, everything, they're not doing the right thing. and I had to send it to the consumer advocate, for the state of New Hampshire. And fortunately, as soon as they got a call or an email or whatever from the New Hampshire insurance advocate, they were like, oh, okay, now we better take care of this. Now everything's fine. It's like, but people don't have the means to follow that down. I mean, that became like a full-time job for me for months of trying to keep track of everything that was happening, trying to make sure that I knew the laws, trying to make sure that whatever, so that I wouldn't be taken advantage of. And they absolutely, they wanted to give me like a third of what I actually, needed to fix my house. It's unbelievable, but that's what they do. They, take advantage of the least of these who are working people and can't spend all of this time, chasing this down. I was fortunate that, I work on weekends and had the time to actually put into doing that, or else I would have completely gotten screwed. That's just how it is. Well, Heather, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for coming on. And let's just kind of give a little bit of information. Can people, log on anywhere and see what, see where can they find out how to support, volunteer, donate, things like that.
You can find us at Hoffman, HOFFMAN, FOR, Gov, NJ.
Okay.
And that's a good starting point. You can reach out to us on all the social medias. Both Madeline and I have Twitters, we have Facebook pages, we have TikTok, we have Instagram. So you can find us all across any social medias. There's tons of work to be done, no matter what your skill set is. We have volunteers that write letters to the editor. We have people that liaison with the press. We have people that do research on topics that maybe we don't know enough about, like a public bank, for example, is one of the things we're running on. So we have people researching and doing actual number crunching to see what that stuff would look like. So, or just if you like phone calls, if you like talking to people, we have room for everyone in the campaign, no matter what. And, donations. We need donations. We need to print signs and palm cards and get out to events and tables and all that good stuff. So no matter what level of engagement people want. And if you want to follow me in other capacities after November, if I'm not Lieutenant Governor, then on the odd chance that I'm not, I also have my own podcast called Wine, Women, and Revolution, which you can find on Create Your Future Productions. And I am an artist, so you can find my artwork there. And also I'm filming a documentary about a man who was from Texas. He was a reverend in Texas, married a number of kids, in his late 40s, realized he was gay. So now he was trying to live out his authentic self in a very repressive Texas Christian environment. So we're in the process of filming that documentary, and I do need donations for that as well, so we can get out to Texas and talk to people, because he lives in New Jersey now. He has got a great life, a great husband, a great church in New Jersey, but we have to get out there to Texas and talk to the people that shaped his story. So there's a lot of things that I can, you can engage with me in different ways.
I guess I'll just say thank you because clearly you are very busy. And thank you so much for coming onto the show. And, anyone watching, try and support. It's very important. I can't stress it enough, right? How important it is to have support, right? Especially when you're running a third party and on a third party ticket and things like that. So, and thank you very much, y'all. Have a great day.